Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
Our next guest has releases on Hospital Records, Metalheadz, CIA, Dispatch, and Ninja Tune, to name a few. With collaborations on original productions alongside DNB veteran Quadrant, she's only fallen deeper in love with music that she plays and produces. But it doesn't stop there. She's also an important part of the DNB Girls, a collective of women driven to amplify one another in dance music. Today, I'm chatting with Iris, sharing her workflow in the studio, the importance of prep and planning, how she's found inspiration through her journey, and so much more. Iris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited.
Me too. So let's get everybody familiar with you, your story. How did you find yourself in this industry, and what did that journey look like leading you to where you are today?
Oh boy. So I've been listening to electronic music since I think I was about 12. I kind of got into it through a local radio station called C89.5. It's actually a high school radio station. And they just basically played a lot of electronic music, and I kind of found it through artists like Daft Punk and Prodigy, and it sort of took off from there. I was like, this sounds so cool. It's like the future. And then got more into finding, more and more artists that I like. Eventually discovered, raves, probably when I was about 16. Then got really into trance and UK hard house, and those were kind of my go-tos for a while. Then sort of, as I got older, I mellowed out a bit, moved into more tech house and techno. That was really, and I still play a little tech house and techno, here and there. Then finally had a friend who's like, hey, come to this DNB night with me. Like, DNB is like kind of not, it's sounding a little bit different than what you remember. And I know going back now, I'm like, oh gosh, all those tunes in 2000, 2001 that I sort of glossed over were amazing. But I got into that through like Pendulum, and artists like that, and then started going every week and fell in love with it. And, met my current husband. I've only had one. I met my
first husband.
My first. My first and only. I met my husband, Lee Quadrant, through DNB Tuesdays. We met at a night, got together shortly after that, and he's the one that I had been taking a break from DJing. He's kind of the one that got me into DJing more and got me into DJing drum and bass. And then, like, I think a year after we'd been married, he was like, you should totally join me in the studio. And that's when I jumped into kind of the production side of things. And we've been going ever since. I think that was 2011 we made our first tune.
Man, I love your musical journey, like the trance, the hard house, and then how you mentioned Pendulum. Was it by chance the Hold Your Color album?
Yeah, that was it. That whole album. Yeah, I had a friend that was like, you gotta listen to this. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. this is what DNB is sounding like right now. It was the best.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all it takes. Like you can like so many different genres and you're like, I don't know if I like this genre, and then boom, somebody hits you in the feels and I love that. And I love that he encouraged you to get in the studio, because that can be such an intimidating thing for artists. And, you know, because we all suck in the beginning. So it's just
definitely. And I dabbled like a little bit before. I think I had like Fruity Loops at one point, and I was playing around with that. But I think that was back before you could do things like watch YouTube videos and learn. So there's just nobody around me that could even begin to teach me how to start.
So when you look back at your career over the years, is there any experience that comes to mind that you're so incredibly proud of, and why?
Let's see. I think one of the biggest is when we released our album. There have been a lot of really awesome experiences. Like our first tune came out on Metalheadz, and you know, we did an album for Clue for Commercial Suicide. That was really kind of a big culmination of a lot of different styles of drum and bass that we love. We went kind of all the way from super minimal to really pretty hard, probably as hard as we play. I don't think I'd compare it to what you think of as like today's neuro sound, but it could get pretty exciting. And just getting that finished, I think that took us maybe like 2 years, with a few breaks in between. And it was nice to get it out the door. Lee and I collabed on the art that we did for it. I did the photography for that album, and he did all of the design work on it. And it was really great to work with Clue. He's kind of an amazing label owner in that he really encourages you to kind of push the envelope and sort of do what you want. So he's like, if you want to experiment with the sound, you go ahead and do it. And his label was a really perfect spot for that.
And what that's so amazing. That I feel like that's the best kind of people to work with. They just allow for that creative flow for you to test the boundaries and see where you might go.
Yeah. And he definitely, like, he could give input, and he's, you know, great about feedback, but also just, you know, really kind of letting you do what you want. You're like, hey, I think this tune's kind of weird. I don't know if we should put it on the album or not. And he's like, you know, like, go for it. It's kind of your album, and it's like your sound. We actually themed the whole album around the Seattle area where we're all from, me, Quadrant, and Kid Hops. And so there's a lot of sounds from the area. Our tune Orca is sounds from our rail system. And we use killer whales from one of our local killer whale pods. And there's a few other like quirky sounds in there. I think one of the tunes says I recorded thunder from a thunderstorm that we had and stuff like that.
And I love how, you know, there was the art, the branding, like the whole package, the photos that you really put your heart and soul into this album.
Yeah.
Speaking on production, because you've been doing this for quite some time, what does your workflow in the studio look like? Maybe beginning to end?
Yeah.
Lab?
Yeah, it kind of depends. It depends on if we've got like an end goal in mind or not, or if we're like, let's just get a tune. A lot of the times they'll come in and be like, so what do we want? How do we want this tune to sound? What are we trying to make? And what sounds fun to make right now. So we'll start there. We'll generally lay out some drums, kind of play around with the drums a lot until we get a vibe that we like. And then from there, we'll try to get, bass line in. And that's really kind of the meat of the tune that kind of ends up informing a lot of the rest of the tune. Drum and bass, that's it. So from there, we'll start, we might build up that, 16 bar loop a bit. We might add a few extra samples in there, but then we'll pull it out. We'll, make it a first half of a tune. I think we usually just hit, copy paste for however many bars until the first breakdown, and then start doing things like adding in intro bits. And we try to do something different every 8 to 16 bars, which is usually what I tell people when they're looking for feedback. You got to change something every 8 to 16 bars to keep it moving. So, we'll put in, we will actually go in and put in little markers where we know things need to happen, like a little build up, a little break. Once the first half of the tune is done, then it's kind of it's pretty straightforward from there. All we need is a little breakdown, and then, copy paste for the second half. Though what we've been doing lately is for the second half, actually kind of changing up things. Like we might do a little change in the drums, do a little change in the bass line, just pretty subtle, but just enough to kind of keep it interesting. After that, there will always be a point where Lee sort of goes into his whole mode, where he sort of shuts everything out, and he's like, I'm just going to do a lot of detail work. And he, does all that final polish is him.
I love how thorough you just described your process, because in my head, I can see it. I know what's going on. I love that you use markers. I love that you're starting out for that first loop and just add what's going to work. Okay, cool. And then the copy paste.
Yeah.
Switch things up. It's sometimes we can get so we just spend so much time trying to perfect one sound and then realize it doesn't go with the other bits that I have here, and I scrapped it. So just make it easy. And then I love how you also have that process where he'll go in the studio and then just, we said fine tuning, I'm guessing EQing, mixing down.
Just if there's any bits missing, anything else, there might be some tiny sounds where you're listening through 20 times, and you're okay, something needs to happen here. It doesn't need to be, we don't need to overthink it. There just needs to be a little sound here or something. He'll go in and do that. And I think some of the benefit of having both of us work together is that, if he's getting stuck on that one sound, because when you're by yourself, you can definitely get stuck being I'm going to make this sound fit. I'm going to make this sound fit. But sometimes you just need somebody else to be that sound's not fitting. Let's pull it out and pick something different. And that's kind of one of the things that I think Lee really likes about, working with other people and having me around.
Yeah. Fresh ears too. Hey?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of working with people, you work at an amazing team, the DNB Girls. Can you tell us what part of that collective you really love working with the most, and what have you learned through that experience?
Let's see. So it's been really we've really expanded since I think you were a part of it. And back when it started out, just DNB Girls of Canada, and now I feel like we've got something 30 girls, if I'm thinking right. Yeah, maybe it's more like 20. I don't know. I haven't counted, but it's, I think Jamie and Stacy, Jams and Miss Isis, who started it, are kind of the managers, US and Canada. Just really organized, really great people to work with. They're so, so low key and chill. And so it's been great working with them, getting to know them. One of the best things has been getting to know all of these women across North America that do things like they make drum and bass, they throw shows, they MC, they're singers, they're producers, and they're DJs. And like, I've gotten to meet a bunch of them over the years, and that's been really great. It's kind of nice to have a little, like a collective of women that and you can talk to, that are all kind of into the same thing and have a lot of experience. And I think one of the good things has been too, like the networking. Just, I know girls across the country now that I might not have otherwise found.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible though, how there are so many of us out there, but where's that representation? Like, how do we pull people into knowing what's going on?
Yeah, totally. I think that's been kind of one of the benefits. And like, that's one of the things you find with those like all women collectives is they, highlight other women. I know at least the DNB Girls will try to post up tracks and mixes and stuff from other women around the world. And you've got other girls like the DNB Express girls and Girls Take Action over in Europe. And it's crazy how many there are.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many. You just got to look sometimes and ask and put yourself out there. So like many hardworking DJs, producers, you're also a parent. So I would love to hear your insight on, do you think you spend your time more wisely before versus now? And what does that time management look like for you?
Yeah. I don't know if we spend it more wisely. I like to think that we try to, but I know we were supposed to do a studio session on recently and totally forgot and sat on the couch because at the end of the day we just got tired. We realized, I think at like 11 o'clock that we had planned to be in the studio. But I will say I definitely have a lot less free time. Apparently I had a bunch of time in the past that I did not realize that I had, and that sort of disappeared. We definitely have to be a lot more strategic. We have to do things like plan studio sessions and actually maybe put them on the calendar. We have to, whereas before we didn't necessarily have a shared calendar, now we have a shared family calendar, and we have to kind of force ourselves to be more organized. Otherwise, we forget things in between everything going on. We'll forget, gigs the other person has. So all that stuff goes on a shared calendar so we can just be more organized, even if we're not more, effective. We kind of, I think we spent a few days just getting sounds together. So when we do come into the studio, we can kind of just sit down and get going. It's like, I've already got this folder, let's just go. And that goes with people, like if we're collabing with somebody and they're coming in. We recently did a tune with Ulterior Motive, and Lee spent a few weeks just getting a little drum loop together. And just so we can be effective, as soon as somebody comes in, we can just sit down and kind of go and get moving on a tune.
That's smart. Is it, I don't know if it's like this for you, but I think it's incredibly interesting that most of the work I do is prep and planning. Like, like I think of like a DJ set. You're just like planning your set and practicing and having the backup and doing this and doing that. And then like the DJ gig is just like an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
With everything.
Yeah. And that's a lot of it is, now we're like, oh shoot, when are we going to go through tunes? And like, okay, I've got a DJ gig like this Friday. So I'm going to have to start going through tunes at this time in the week, or, somebody's asked for a mix, and I'll put that due date. Probably I'll set it for the day before they've asked for it to be due. And then, I set a reminder for myself the week before, so I know that I need to get all those tunes together and get it recorded.
Smart. Listen, take notes, people. So as we end this interview off, I'd love to hear about any exciting releases, events, anything you've got going on you think people should check out.
Yeah. So let's see. We've got, we just had a tune come out with Dabs, for his Wormhole EP. No, it wasn't Wormhole. It was Wormatic. For his Wormatic EP, LP. He just did an album. So we did a tune for that. We've got a tune coming out on Filth's album that we did when he came to visit. There's one that we did, I'm not actually sure when that's coming out. Soon, I think. And we did a tune with Ulterior Motive that should be coming out sometime in the summer. We just sent one off to Hospital that I think is probably going to come out later this summer. Then we're still working on an EP for Commercial Suicide. We're a couple of tunes in for that. We've got a couple more to do. And then there's a handful of collabs that we're getting going. We're hopefully going to be working with Garen Stone. We recently had FaZe come through and got started on something there. And then there's a couple of other people that we're hoping to work with as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Watching your journey is so inspiring. I think you had your son right before I had mine. So it was watching like, can I still have a career after? Like what is this gonna look like? So it was lovely seeing what you had going on, because I needed that encouragement. I don't know if you're like that.
I did the same thing. I watched Misrepresent, who had her first kid, I think shortly before Holden was born. So she was kind of my mommy inspiration in that, she was playing gigs right up until she had her kid, and then she had her kid and she, jumped right back into it. I try to look at those people because I know when I first had Holden, that first year is so overwhelming, and you've got, you're operating on no sleep, and you're trying, you can't take that much time off before you become irrelevant. So you got to kind of jump back into it as soon as you feel ready. So I sort of tried to slowly get back into it. We definitely spent a lot less time in the studio that first year, but we've been, spending, hopefully more time this year. We've got more tunes on the go.
Yeah. Well, and they're all of quality, because I mean, you could put out tons of tunes, but they're all of quality. You can hear the love, you can hear the passion in them. Yeah. And now, and Distinct just had twins. Well, maybe not.
She did,
but like
she did, and she jumped right back into it too. And I've been so impressed with how she did that, and she's still going with work, she's still going with DJing. Sounds like, I talked to her recently about how she can kind of keep going with production, maybe just, if you can't focus on a full tune right now, just get sounds together. One day the tune's going to come, and then then you have a whole bunch of sounds.
Exactly. I'm glad that she has somebody like you to talk to about it. And I really hope, especially if there's any women that are watching that need some inspiration, go check out the DNB Girls. Go check out the groups that she's talking about here, because there are so many women out there. And if you reach out to us, we would be more than happy to chat with you. So don't be
Yeah,
shy.
definitely. For
Well,
sure.
thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you for having
Of
me.
course. For the rest of y'all that are tuned in, was there something that she said that really stood out to you, that maybe sparked some creative juices, and now you're thinking about getting back into the studio and finishing that tune? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know how you're going to apply something that she talked about today. And as always, don't let no one kill your vibes.
Bye.